Welcome to the Be Dynamic podcast. This is a place where we unveil the future of personalized wellness. I'm your host, Maggie Topham. This is a space where science meets soul, and we redefine what it means to live well. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Be Dynamic podcast. This is where we unveil the future of personalized wellness with Dynamic Health Institute. Today, we have Eileen Block with us. This is episode number 2. Eileen is, after 40 years as a corporate attorney, Eileen Block went back to school to pursue her passion in health and fitness. And at 64, I love that so much, she became a certified personal trainer as well as a nutrition and fitness coach. Now in her second act, she focuses her energies on teaching postmenopausal women how to get fit, strong, healthy, and to remain independent as they age. She works with women to find their limiting beliefs and how to overcome those beliefs to live their healthiest, happiest, fittest lives after 50. And I am your host, Maggie Topham. I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Be Dynamic podcast. This is a space where science meets soul, and we redefine what it means to live well. To be dynamic is the opposite of being static. It means living with intention, movement, and power. And I think Eileen is the perfect example of this. So Eileen, tell us what it means to live with intention, with energy, and with power. And as you tell us that, rewind all the way back. Tell us how it started. Tell us your background. How did this all get going for you?
I'm just thinking about your statement, though. I really like that. Let's see. How did it all get started? Well, how far back do we go? I spent 40 years as a corporate lawyer, and I became a lawyer because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my dad thought it was a good idea, so that's what I did. And when I was, I want to say 55, I was part of a women lawyers group. I don't exactly even remember what the purpose of it was, but what it ended up being was kind of a safe place to talk about, what was your purpose and, beyond the law, why were you put on this planet? And it was at that point where I remember thinking, gee, if I had to do it over again, I would have gotten a degree in like nutrition or exercise physiology and opened up like a spa in some tropical location. And I actually looked at going back to school. My undergrad is in accounting and finance. And when I figured out if I did it kind of the traditional way, by the time I got out of school, it'd be time to retire. So I thought, well, I guess that'll never happen. And it fast forward to, I guess it was 2020 in the middle of COVID. My husband and I moved here to Maui, and I had started my own, having gone through menopause, I guess in my early 50s, and over a number of years, gained weight, particularly around my belly, places where I never had held it before. And I am a bit embarrassed to say, but perhaps others can relate to it, that I had done a lot of, over the years, fad diets. I was always in a rush to lose weight. And as my 60th year was coming, I thought, okay, my gift to myself for turning 60 is I'm not going to diet. I'm not going to diet. I'm not going to let go, but I'm giving myself permission not to diet. And so as 61 approached, and I had gained weight over that year. I don't remember how much. I remember thinking, okay, it's time to take yourself in hand and do something different than all of the fad diets. I put myself on my first diet, I think I was 13, because the boy I liked my friend Myra, and she had a flat stomach. And I decided it was because she had the flat stomach that he liked her. And it started from there. So anyway, I came across this woman on Instagram named Train with Joan McDonald, who's this amazing, now Joan's 78, woman who went through her own health and fitness transformation at 70. And I remember looking at her posts, and at the time, I was very new to Instagram. I posted pictures of like my dogs and my husband's an Ironman triathlete, his races, and Joan had popped up. And I remember looking at it, and it was a before and after and thinking, okay, she did this at 70. you got a decade on her. You have no excuse. And I signed up with a program called the Wonder Women. And you wouldn't know from looking at my before pictures, but I had exercised most of my adult life. I loved weight training, but I realized now I didn't really have a focus.
So you've always been interested. This has always been a passion of yours.
But it was always kind of like, it was funny. At one point, my coach said to me, well, you're an athlete. And I said, oh, no. My husband is an athlete. Again, Ironman, world class, Kona Ironman champion.
Yeah. Which is amazing. We'll need to talk about that too.
I just work out. And she said, no. At that point, it's like, if you prioritize, if you follow a high protein macro based diet, if you train heavy 4 to 5 days a week, if you prioritize your sleep, if you make sure you drink water, if you focus on your mindset, if those things are your non-negotiables, then you are an athlete. That's how an athlete lives. And that was a very impactful conversation. I've repeated.
You hit the head with that because you had not identified as that at all. And isn't that amazing, the change that made?
Well, and it's really, when I talk to people about it, because before that, if someone would have said, how would you describe yourself? I mean, the first thing I would say is I'm a mom. I'm a mom and a wife and a friend, and my career is as a lawyer. And the things that are part of your identity are the things you're going to make sure get done come hell or high water, right? I mean, if you have kids or a spouse or whatever, you go that extra mile. You don't let things get in your way. If there's things you have to get done as a mother, or, even in my professional life, there were responsibilities I had, right? You didn't let roadblocks get in the way. If that was part of how you defined yourself, those things got done. If exercise was just, well, I do that when I have time, or eating healthy as well, I'll, worry about that when I have time, those are not part of your identity. And so to have recognized that I made those things part of my identity.
You were already there.
Yeah, I mean, but it was interesting. For me, it was a couple of things. It was giving up it has to happen overnight. And to be frank, for all I knew at that point, I had never heard of macros in 2020. I mean, I had done Weight Watchers and whatever diets.
Weight Watchers not talk about macros at all?
They may now. I hadn't done weight for probably about 10 years prior to when I learned about macros. I had done like one of these part liquid, part food. It's fun.
You've tried them all. You've been there. You've seen it all.
I mean, seriously. And so learning about macros was kind of the missing piece for me. Understanding, I mean, it's funny when I think about my generation and, Twiggy and what was held up as the ideal, and this idea of eating as little as possible, right? Skinny and cardio versus eating as much as possible to be strong and fit, and as much as possible to lose body fat, as much as
such a huge mind shift, isn't it?
It was such a huge mind shift.
I still have to have conversations with myself. If I get a DEXA scan and I stand on the scale, because I don't care how much I weigh. I care what my body composition is. So, but when someone does throw my weight in front of my face, I always have to step back and have some thoughts about it. And because we've been so ingrained to care about that stupid scale, and it doesn't give us any important metric at all, unless we use other things with it.
Right. Well, it's funny. I just did a post about that because I had some hormone issues last year and I gained about 15 pounds. And so I had not weighed what I currently weigh since I went through my original weight loss. And I remember thinking, I know I'm way stronger. And so I have all those. So I went back and looked. And when I first looked up my waist measurement from 5 years ago, so it was the last time I weighed this was August of 2020. So it was just, a month or two shy of 5 years. I actually thought it was my hip measurement. I had to go back and look and make sure I didn't look at the wrong thing. So weighing exactly the same amount of the 4 areas I measured, I'm 15 inches smaller. I mean, my chest is 5 inches smaller. My waist is 5 inches smaller. My hips are 3 inches smaller. My thighs at the same
And even when you see it in black and white like that, our brains still, we have to talk through it because we've been so ingrained. That is incredible. That is incredible. I love that.
It's funny. I talk to my clients about what you just said is getting a DEXA scan, because you can take measurements as well, and it gives you some additional information to the scale, but it really doesn't. I have a client who's actually an international champion Olympic lifter at 65, and she came to me. She was only eating 1,400 calories a day, working out 2 hours a day, and I was like, yeah, how do you do that? We took her up to 2,100 calories, and over a 4-month period, she lost 5 pounds of fat and gained 4 pounds of muscle. This is a woman who's been training for 8 years, and she's 6.
And I'm so happy she listened to you, because a lot of women like that, they're scared to death to try. And you mentioned you help people find and overcome their limiting beliefs. Do you feel like this is one of them?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I was just chatting with another gal. So I would tell you 75% of my clients come in and we start with a reverse diet, meaning that they don't eat enough to actually lose any body. They're eating 1,000 to 1,200 calories.
And do you find that happens more so than it doesn't? Would you say that's the majority of the women?
75%.
75%.
75.
Wow. And do you feel like there's an age, do you feel like it's all women in general, or do you find, is your clientele more your age? Do you feel like they just start eating less and less and less the older they get?
They've always eaten they are my age. My youngest client, she's a baby. She's only 49. I have one at 49 and one at 50. And then I have one who's 53 and maybe 1 or 2 in their later 50s. But then the majority are in their 60s, and I have 2 that are in their early 70s. And
they're probably shocked to hear how much protein they need to eat, aren't they?
Well, protein and just the calories. And it's fun. I have one gal, and it's interesting, right? You can provide people with information. You can provide them with the research. You can show them proof of what other people their age have done, but you cannot make anyone make those changes. And whether I had a gal who just the other day, we decided to part ways because there was no point in me taking her money when she wouldn't follow the program. She just refused. She came in eating 1,200 calories, and we increased her to 1,500, and she said that was too much, and on her and cut herself back to 1,400.
She didn't trust the process. It's really hard. It was too ingrained. It's too scary.
Right. And at that point, all I can say to her is, well, if you ever change your mind and you actually want to try. But then I have other clients who have come in, and I'm trying to think. I've had several who, as we've gone from 1,400 calories up over 2,000, have lost 10, 15 pounds.
You probably can't believe it.
It's
I can eat. Yay! I can eat.
I have one gal whose husband was there's no way you can be losing weight eating 2,000 calories. And she's like, look at my chart. She's lost 14 pounds going to reverse, and has now another 15 pounds to lose that we could do in a cut. But it's mind-boggling. I will tell you, that didn't happen with me. By the time I was ready to start a program, I was eating enough.
You kind of reverse diet yourself on accident.
Exactly. Not
which is actually a good place to start.
It is. Although I didn't do it the way, you or I might reverse someone, because I did probably put 10 pounds on it. It was a long time ago now. But every time I see it, it thrills me to see a woman in her 50s or 60s or 70s increase what she's eating, start regularly lifting weight, and have the scale go down and her measurements drop while she's eating more. I mean, what could be better?
Actually giving her body nutrients. her
Yes.
organs, her muscle, her brain. Oh, it's so important. You're doing so many good things for these women, and I'm so happy they are listening to you. And you've been such an example for them to see you can be vibrant and start your second half. And I love that you say your second half, you can have a blast. The fun's just getting started.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we just I did my first Silver and Strong retreat last month, and there were 14 of us. Oh my God, did we have fun? It was.
And I watched, I think you did, that was the podcast you did a podcast with someone about that, correct? Is that what I watched?
Well, we did an Instagram live. Yes.
Oh, that's what it was. A live. And watched
Yeah.
that. That looked
So
like a blast.
it was everything I could have hoped for and more. We're already planning next year's event, and having that many women together who,
Powerful.
you know, 4 of them were, well, it's funny, 4 of them were not clients. 3 have since become clients, which was not the intention, but it's fabulous. You know, to come together and talk about, one of the very first workshops we did was about, you know, positive mindset and positive affirmations and the difference those things can actually make, and kind of how you set your intention for the day, how you see the world. One of the gals who was on the podcast, who's a dear friend of mine, we did our first bodybuilding shows together. She has a one-woman show called What If Wonder Woman Were 66? And which, you know, she talked about this process for her, and what it was like. Similar to me, she lost 40 pounds to go through this process at 66 and kind of find her inner Wonder Woman, and that we all have our inner Wonder Woman.
I love that.
Our age, and that, you know, one of the things that I think is the best thing you can do for yourself, I would say at 50 plus, is challenge yourself to do something that makes you uncomfortable. You know, what I found is, you know, as you get older, I'm gonna, you know, those of us who have worked outside the home, you get established in a career, you know, you've climbed the ladder, you know, you're comfortable in your career. It's not necessarily a huge challenge. You know what you're doing. And so your life is comfortable. You may not be happy. You may not be happy with your weight or your health, but you're comfortable. And so the idea of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can be really daunting. I know it was for me. I got up on the stage and did my first bodybuilding show at 63, 62, 63. No, 60. I lose track of time. I think I was 62. I think it was.
Okay. And so when did you retire from when did you start this fitness journey? Like, when did you stop? When did you retire from your corporate job?
Well, I didn't retire from my corporate job
Okay.
the last year.
So you were doing it all together.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Got you.
I started coaching the week before I left my corporate job.
Okay. So
It just kind of,
you were swinging on a branch and swung right onto the next one.
yeah. Prior to
Okay.
that, did some free stuff, and, you know, I was getting my certifications and all of that good stuff. I started my transformation actually on my 61st birthday in 2020, and hit my goal a year later. And so that was 2021. And then I did like a 5-month reverse, and then a month kind of mini build. And then January of 2022, I started a cut, and I lost 25 pounds in 24 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, to get up
Wow.
on.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting.
And how was that? Was that was that like a bucket list, or just while you were doing it, were you like, I should do this?
No, it was something I had wanted to do in my 40s.
Okay.
And I thought, you know, that option had come and gone. And so, no, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, working
Good
full
for
time.
you.
And it was like a half-time job between, you know, the steps and the cardio and the training and the posing. And that was I did figure, which was the right choice for me. I'm not a bikini gal. Those poses are not something you would ever catch me doing.
It was very uncomfortable, I must say.
And so my big was just to get up on stage and feel like I belonged. And I did. I felt, I mean, I look back now, I was pretty skinny. But I did feel like I belong. I did 2 shows back to back, one in California, one here in Hawaii. And I was the oldest woman at either show, which is a badge I've always proudly worn.
That is loud and proud, sister.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It was fabulous. But the
And
biggest,
can I ask you do you know what your body fat got down to?
I don't actually. Again, that's one of the downsides of living on a rock in the middle of the ocean.
Yes.
There's
a DEXA scan right there.
Well, I'm actually getting a DEXA scan this week, but they only have the ability to do the bone. That when I've done the sports DEXAs, that's in California.
Okay.
And, so my most recent thing to push myself outside my comfort zone is I decided I'm going to do a powerlifting competition this year.
Awesome. So you're training for that right now.
I am training for that now. It's going to be in October. So it's in California. And so when I'm there, I have done my prior sports DEXAs at UC Davis Sports Medicine. And so I'll go in and get one done while I'm there. I'll be curious to see, because the last one I had there was September of 23. So it'll be.
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see, because your goal is completely different. Your goal is strength this time and not necessarily body composition. So it'll be interesting.
And so I did a slow reverse. So the 2 shows were November of 22. I did a slow reverse. I didn't get back to my pre-cut macros until I want to say April of 23. And then I went into a build.
Okay.
And I actually enjoyed that. And I like, pushing myself to get stronger.
And so how do you deal with, let's talk about injury, because I know that's I'm dealing with a shoulder injury right now. And that's something I dread because if I can't train, my brain loses it. It's my mental security. And so, and as we get older, that's one of our fears. So, and one of the roadblocks we've got to deal with all the time. So how have you had any injuries you've had to work around?
I have. It's funny you say shoulder. I inflamed my rotator cuff, and I couldn't do any kind of push activity for 6. So no push-ups, no bench press. I couldn't get under a squat bar. I couldn't get my arms back like this.
That's kind of random.
Although to be transparent, it was really my own fault, because one of my leather bucket list items was to be able to do pull-ups. So I decided I was going to do pull-ups, and I started with a really wide band, and I did pull-ups every day for 14 months until I could do unassisted pull-ups. And, I look back and think, it probably would have been good to have some rest days in there, because I did.
We're supposed to do that? Dang.
Yeah. So that comes and goes, although it likes to move. So I have a fabulous sports chiropractor who also happens to be a power lifter. So it's helpful. He says,
good.
Or from my my neck, but it is interesting. I had said recently that the 2 acknowledgments I will give for getting older is I have to take time to warm up, and I have to give myself time to recover, because otherwise,
I think that's so important.
Yeah, I will tell you, I probably bench more than I benched at 25.
That's so cool. I love that. Well, and I know it sound like me. We're the type we're going to go, 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 go. So it is hard. It is hard to take rest days. It really is.
Well, but I know for my lifting, I have to. So the shoulder is one thing. Right now it's the left one that's it's mostly okay. It makes me pay attention. And then I have an issue with, it's at the top of my right glute, and sometimes it'll go down my hamstring. But it was interesting because part of that turns out was from my form on my deadlift from not. So I was doing so sumo grip deficit 5-second negative deadlifts.
Okay. So, I have the whole picture in my head. Okay.
So most of the work was going down to the floor.
Yes.
And what I was doing was bouncing the barbell off the floor, as opposed to
your body.
He said it's like turning your spine into a fishing rod.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
So he said, you want to touch the ground like you're touching eggshells. And so just the idea
I like that.
Maintaining that tightness all the way through.
Thank goodness for good coaches.
Yes. And it's one of the things that I talk to my clients about, when we talk about form, I emphasize to them, good form is so you don't get injured, right? The whole thing about why you brace your upper body and why you get tight before you squat is so you don't get injured, right? And so that although, you can hold that barbell and not injure your back and make sure you're using your legs properly. So yes, injury prevention is key. And right, mobility at our age, well, I've got several years on you, is really important. And I spend, certainly on lower, so today I was squatting. I spent probably 20 minutes warming up and doing different mobility exercises. I have really tight hip flexors. And so the amount of various different exercises I was doing to loosen everything up. And then I changed coaches recently to move to a strength coach. And no matter how much I'm lifting, he like, if you're going to squat, you start with the bar and then you slowly add weight. So my warm up, by the time I did all of the mobility stuff and then I did all my warm ups to squat, it was like 47 minutes.
Wow.
Then
I got so worth it.
You just have to, you can't rush it. And then I got to my working set. So yeah, it was.
Isn't that interesting?
That is one of the realities. I think everyone needs to warm up, but I know what I got away with when I was 25, and I can't get away with those things now, and that's okay. I'm happy not to be 25.
No, and that's why I love that you're where you're at and that you post these things. The fact that you even know what your hip flexors need. So
Yes.
many women our age, your age,
Right.
need to know this, because if we know at this point an injury or a fall can be detrimental. And
Right.
so getting this information out there is so crucial. So I'm so happy for your platform and what you share with these women and the fact that they even know what their hip flexors are. Hallelujah.
But it's funny. That's why I decided to do this. Like, I could be retired. I don't need to work, but I feel like finding kind of the missing link in the macros, and then recognizing that while to me, there's a difference between working out and training.
Mhm.
And training is you have a plan and you have a goal and you're working specifically through that plan to that goal. Before, I used to work out and I enjoyed working out, but I mean, I probably didn't change the weights I was using for years. Because I was just working out.
Yeah.
So
I'm done.
I mean,
So you checked off your list.
Right.
Carried on.
Better than nothing, but
Of
so
course.
to have found this combination, to have been able to understand my own limiting beliefs, and I'm so grateful to be living the life I'm living now. I turned 66 last month.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I just feel compelled to pay it forward. And I have to say, it's so fulfilling to see. I mean, my clients are a bunch of badasses. I'm just telling you.
I love that.
They are. They lift heavy. They don't miss.
You're showing them something they had no idea. Most women do not think they can lift up something heavier than a carton of milk.
No.
And for you to say, hey, actually, you can lift like triple that. And they're like, what? I can?
You should have seen these gals at the retreat. So we had people who had never lifted a barbell before, and that was fine. We had dumbbells available and barbells. I mean, it was like an hour, and they were all on a barbell. And
isn't that awesome?
And
of course, we want them to be safe and start light and see what, of course, all of that. But to know they're capable.
Yes. And they got to learn they were capable. And we had, several trainers there to make sure people had the proper form so that they now could go back home. Two of my clients went and bought barbells and plates and all of that didn't have them before.
Oh, I love that.
But yeah.
They love feeling that power, and you showed them that.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic.
We laugh about going to Costco or whatever and, going to pick up a 30-pound bag of dog food. And, there's generally some nice gentleman around who's like, oh, can I get that for you? And we're like, nope, just have to.
I'm almost offended. My husband, we were just away this weekend, and he's a manly man. He wants to carry my suitcase. And I'm surprised he hasn't learned by now. No, I got it. Don't touch my suitcase.
Yeah, right.
I'm not taking the elevator. I'm carrying it down the stairs.
Yeah, always, and it is very empowering. It's very empowering, and I think it helps women see themselves in a different light. And it goes back to how I felt when I got off stage. It was like, well, gosh, if I can do that, what else can I do?
Oh, I love that.
'Cause
Yes, you changed your capacity. It broadened your capacity.
Because I will tell you, I'm slightly petrified about the powerlifting competition. Because I have issues with my hip flexors. We'll see. I mean, I can squat. So in a competition, you have to be able to squat deep enough that your hip crease is below your knee.
Okay.
That's not how I squatted for 5 years. Again, tight hip
You
flexor.
had to, yes.
So it's like learning all over again. I was laughing because I was like, okay, well, the minimum is you have to be able to squat the bar. Okay, I can squat.
I got that.
And get enough, so I'm not going to get disqualified. But it's uncomfortable, and I'm at least. It's funny. I have every year I do a vision board, and the one that is right in the middle of my Smith machine says get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I love that.
Way you push yourself to.
That's how you grow.
Yeah, and learn new things and challenge yourself and have fun. And so a bunch of the gals, well, actually at least one other gal is going to do the competition with me. I'm working on 2 others. And then about half a dozen others are just going to come and watch. And so,
how fun.
Have a big
Look
party.
at that. And the power that comes with women who come together. I've learned that more than I've always been kind of a hermit. And I've learned that just being in this field the last couple of years, the women are powerful.
Yes.
And when they put their minds and their spirits and their goals together, it is incredible what can be accomplished.
That's
and I love that you're leading the pack when it comes to that.
It's been my honor to work with these women and get to know them, because they are a badass group of women. So,
and I'm sure they say the same about you. You mentioned back a little bit about hormones, and we've got to talk about hormones if we're here. And has that been part of your transformation, especially when it comes to joint health, muscle retainment? Tell me about that.
I didn't actually have any other than thyroid hormone, which I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism about 6 years ago. But I didn't actually talk to someone about my hormones until I had lost all my weight. So I had postmenopausal insomnia that lasted for 10 years.
Oh,
it's funny. I think I was like ahead of the curve, because I went through perimenopause from like 47 to 50.
Okay, so no hormones at all whatsoever.
No, I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's. Seriously. So, corporate lawyer here. I drafted documents. I did mergers and acquisitions. I used to feel like I was thinking through tapioca. I thought, and I would like reach for.
That is a good way to put that.
And I was like, oh my God, it's early onset Alzheimer's. That's got to be what. I went to my regular doctor. I went to my OB.
And had no help there whatsoever.
Sent me to a psychiatrist, female. Sent me to a sleep specialist, female. Not a single person asked any questions about hormones, menopause, where I was. And I did
not only could you not function, you were scared you had Alzheimer's.
It was yeah.
And so many women that age, well, it's the highest suicide rate for one. A lot of women quit their jobs because their brains just don't function anymore. Get divorced. So you were right there. You were right there thinking, I don't even know if I can do this.
Well, and it's fun. So when I moved to Maui, after I lost the weight, I'd always wanted to see a functional medicine doctor. I remember arguing with I had done a lot of research about the thyroid and hypothyroidism, and I loved my regular doctor. I will tell you, he was our doctor for 30 years. I remember.
And that's the thing. I think people feel so loyal to their family doctor because they've served them well for their needs in the past.
And I remember talking to him about my thyroid and thinking my weight issues were thyroid related. And I was like, well, what about testing, T3 and T4 and reverse T3? He's like, no, all you need is TSH. On that, remember thinking to myself, that's not true. But at that point,
I love you, but I got to go somewhere else. Yeah.
so, but it took me a while to do it. So I finally went and saw this doctor here, and she ran a bunch of tests. I remember the first time I went back in to see her, she was like, well, how's your energy? I said,
What energy?
I don't know how to answer
Yeah,
that.
this is my normal. I've done it for 10 years.
Okay, yeah. And she said, well, you have the lowest cortisol levels I've ever seen.
Really?
Yes. And which when you think about the fact that I had been on extreme diets off and on for literally 40 years, I had a very high stress job. And my body was just constantly under stress. So at a certain point, right, if your body's putting out cortisol, fight or flight, and nothing happens, it just stops. And so
you're the exact opposite. Yours was like, I am done.
Yeah, there's why put up, well, not paying attention to it. And so first we got my cortisol levels back up to normal ranges with some adrenal supplements and the like. And I still wasn't sleeping. And so then the miracle of bioidentical progesterone was introduced to me.
Wow.
And in 5 days after 10 years of waking up every single night between an hour and 2 hours after I fell asleep, being up for an hour to 3 hours every single night. There might have been 1 or 2 nights in that 10 years where somehow I slept through. In 5 days, I was sleeping through the night. Oh my God.
This is so sad and so happy at the same time.
Well, right. I had so much energy. I was like bouncing off the walls. I mean, when all of a sudden your body's actually getting the rest it needs. So that was the first.
And was it a pill form, transdermal? What did they put you on?
No, it was a troche under the tongue.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And cycled it, or just put you on it and said, let's go?
No, put me on it and good to go. And it was interesting. So that was, and like truly life-changing.
And did she put you on that before seeing your lab results? Like just symptomatic, said, I think you need this. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Because I would say symptomatically, they would say, this is what you need. Your age, let's throw you on this. We'll check your labs later.
I do, because in the last year, my hormones took a nosedive. And I remember that, not my progesterone, because I've been taking like all the estradiol and estriol and estrine and everything. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, part of it's age. But the other interesting thing, so you asked about like when I retired from so I retired from my corporate job February 9th of 2024. I started coaching like February 2nd. And so after 40 years as a corporate lawyer where I worked, 50 or 60 hours a week. And my last job, I was in-house counsel. So I was general counsel and I was vice president of administration. And so I oversaw legal and HR and finance and IT. Is that everything? That might have been. Anyway, it was a lot. So it was always kind of pedal to the metal. So I'm like, okay, I'm retiring from that. I can work part-time. I didn't know how to do that, I realized. So I started with 5 clients, and a month later I had 25 clients. And so that was like February. Anyway, basically I blew out my adrenals and my cortisol level tanked again. And I stopped sleeping, and I gained the 15 pounds. And that was interesting because you think yourself, and you think you kind of have control of
your exactly, the word control came to mind,
right? And then I backed off. I let some clients go, and well, you know what it was, I was going to do another show. I was going to do another my 60th, just to celebrate my 65th birthday. And I started the cut and nothing happened the first week. Fine. but nothing happened the second week. We cut a little more, nothing happened the third week, nothing happened the fourth week. And that's when I said to my coach, I said, something's wrong. I, should have lost at least a pound. And then I stopped sleeping. And then I went back to the functional medicine doctor and said, something's wrong. And so the interesting thing I will say, and this is kind of well, it was funny because Evan reached out to me and it was kind of like perfect timing, because I felt like there wasn't a real understanding of my lifestyle. And then I had
and that's such a huge piece of it.
Well, it really was. So then I talked to another functional medicine doctor here, who kind of came from the Chinese medicine world, which most of it I love and I understand. But then she brought up, she was like, well, what about intermittent fasting? Would you and I'm like, absolutely not. She's like, well, the intuitive eating, you should only eat when you're hungry. I'm like, you don't understand how the world works. If your goal is to build muscle and put muscle on and fuel your body, it's not necessarily just eating when you're hungry. And so I initially talked to the team at Dynamic Health to kind of give me a second opinion. And then I had my call with Eileen and Allison. And I remember getting off the phone with them and saying to my husband, I was like, oh my God, I found people. I said,
that's exactly what I said. I came home to my husband. I said, they speak my language.
Yes. So, having a group like that understand, it's so interesting, the ongoing conversations around HRT. I did not use HRT to lose weight. I don't know that, you tell me if you know otherwise, that HRT would help you lose weight. HRT could help you balance your hormones so that you are in a healthier position to lose weight. But
yes, and I completely, you've got to have the lifestyle pieces of the puzzle in place. And then, and I'm not saying you have, some people, like my case, I've been fighting depression for 27 years. I think hormones could have really helped me along the way. So just being able to feel better mentally and emotionally, then having the drive to work out and to eat, I finally cared. I didn't feel flat anymore. So it kind of came hand in hand with me, because the mental health was such an important part of that puzzle. But I think other people think it's a magic pill. I'm going to get on HRT and I'm going to lose weight. And it doesn't work that way.
Well, right. And there are no magic pills. There are no magic shots. There is no shortcut. It is consistency.
But hold it. The GLP-1s, for some people, have been a bit of magic. Granted, 85-90% of the people are not doing it safely or correctly. Am I safe to say that?
I would assume. It was funny, Evan and I talked about that, because I may have had, and all the clients I've worked with, 2 clients who could have actually been candidates for GLP-1, who were overeating, right? Who were binging.
Just too much food noise. They have a really hard time dialing it in.
And I get that. But with that, if you don't learn how to change your behavior, then
you nailed it.
Go off.
You nailed it. And that's why, yes. So if going through a functional practice with people who are knowledgeable, part of the prescription is you got to go to the weight room 3 times a week. You've got to eat your protein. If you're not, I'm taking you off of it. Honestly, that's the way it should work. And I know a lot of people, they might have 300 pounds to lose. They're going to need a leg up to get some of that weight off so they can start moving. But it goes back. My clients, again, 75% of them aren't eating enough. So exactly.
Actually, Al, who is talking
That's
to
a great point.
She's like, I don't need help not eating. She was one of these intermittent fasters. She would eat 1 meal a day. Can't sleep. She's in the middle of menopause. She can't sleep. It's hard to get up and work out before you drive an hour and a half to your dental practice that you're building on top of,
Wow.
so, so I'm not saying it doesn't have a place, but it's not a magic solution.
And that I completely agree with you,
It's
especially
key.
long term.
And I personally, I know, it's funny, I posted something about this, and man, did I get a ration of crap.
Did you?
Well, because I was really disappointed when Oprah came out with this idea of, oh, well, there's just something different about her and people like her, and she just needs to be on this for the rest of her life in maintenance. No, you don't. You're on it for the rest of your life because you refuse to deal with the issues that make you eat. Eileen's Worldview of Oprah, who I watched her, whatever, every day for 25 years, however long she was on TV. It just, to me, legitimized people being able to say, oh, well, there's just something wrong with me. I just need a drug. I don't need to look at, do I watch what I eat during the week and then eat whatever I want on the weekends? Or do I not exercise at all? Or am I under eating and then I binge eat? I just felt like it was a cop out, but that's not saying it doesn't. What you said is it does have a place. And for people who, from what I understand, have this noise in their head where they're just constantly having this urge to eat, those are not the women I work with.
Yes.
So that I can't really speak
That makes
to that.
sense. Yeah. You're not working with women who are obese. You're working with women who are these little fragile things who need to put on muscle and gain some strength and mobility. So it's a completely different lens you're looking at it through.
And even it's funny, I have a call with a client today who was one of the few who was eating over 2,000 calories when we started working together, and had her track what she was eating. Now that we changed what she's eating, more protein, fruits, veggies, whole grains, she can't eat that much. She's like, I can't, because what I do with people is I change what their macros are made up of, but I start them close to what they were eating so that there isn't a big change,
Yes.
to the metabolism.
Well, that's the whole trick of reverse dieting, is
Right.
being able to increase that caloric intake without gaining weight.
But if you go from eating a bunch of processed crap to
Mhm.
foods, fruits, veggies, protein, she was eating 2,400 calories. She's lucky if she gets 1,800 in now, which is great because you and I both know how, have a chocolate bar and you could eat 1,000 calories right there. That would be.
And then 2 hours later, you're craving more. So you're the one everyone needs to come to when they decide to maybe try and wean off their GLPs, so you can reverse diet them, put on some muscle, and get them back to maintenance.
There you go. Absolutely.
So, well, I don't want to keep you much longer. I do want to finish telling me about, because this is the Be Dynamic podcast, finish telling me about your experience with Dynamic Health Institute and where you're at now with them, and maybe how they've helped you implement some of their tactics in your life.
Well, so it's interesting. So I am on a cut. I don't know if you know anyone else who's had this experience. So I had tried, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correct, Ceramorelin previously, and had issues with it keeping me up, even if I took it in the morning. So we thought, well, we would try the Tesamorelin, and it did the same thing. Even when I took it in the morning, it's funny because it took a little time, but it interfered with my sleep. So I don't know what it is in there.
Some people sleep better with it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was so disappointed. I'm like, anything that's going to help me build.
Dang it.
So that did not work for me. That was fine. But
it was nice. So you had a team that walked with you side by side as you were trying this out.
Yes. And I was able to say, and they talked about, well, maybe cut the dose in half. And I was like, you know what? I know when I don't sleep, it's not good for anybody. No. So no, that's obviously just not a choice for me. But I am using testosterone and a combination of an estradiol and estriol cream, which is interesting because, there's been discussion about whether you can start something like that at my age, more than 10 years post menopause. But I liked the fact that the thought process was there needs to be a balance between your progesterone and your estrogen. And so, we added a small amount of that in. So,
And have you noticed anything in the way you feel? Any difference? Any difference at all? And how long have you been on the testosterone and estrogen?
Actually, you know what? I know exactly. It's only been about a month because I started it
Okay, so it's fairly new.
Yeah, right after
Okay.
right after the
You're still
retreat.
waiting to see what's gonna unfold here. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. And who knows? Maybe I'll try the tesamorelin again. I don't know. But yeah. So, no, I will tell you. In general, actually, I feel great. And to me, the key again is the sleep. And after having not slept for so long, and it was interesting too, I will just say this about that, which was another thing. I was really happy when Evan reached out. So I have clients actually all over the country. And I know that Dynamic Health is not in other countries yet. I have clients in Canada and in Australia, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and a bunch of places in between. And it's hard for people to find good functional medicine
It's
doctors.
really hard. It's such a struggle for them.
The gal that is talking to the Dynamic team right now, she's in Atlanta, and you would think, well, there are a bunch of people there, but it was like she couldn't get in to see someone for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. When in the meantime, this poor gal is not sleeping.
And then it's still a gamble to see if they're even going to know anything about functional health.
Well, that is a very good point, because she did see somebody, and it was interesting because they started her on some progesterone and it didn't solve her sleep problems. And it's interesting, in my role, I'm trying to be careful about what I say or I don't say, but the aftercare was just not there. And so I finally said to her, would you be willing to have a conversation with the Dynamic Health team? Because and that's why. So let me just take a step sideways. I went through the process to get a second opinion. I was happy to work with the company and wanted to be able to refer people to them, because I know people who don't have access. My intention was not to move my care there. It was just to get a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
For the frustration I had with my doctor here, and then talking to the team, and really, I literally got off the phone and said, I found my people. And so I just said, I want to move my care to your team. You guys get it. Not only do you understand the lifestyle I lead, the people on the staff there lead the same lifestyle.
Yes.
So, so that was a big part of it for me. And so watching this client and seeing just this lack of aftercare, I was like, okay, and so she did have a conversation. She's having another conversation. I'm really hopeful that she's going to move forward, because it's very hard to watch people suffer when you know the answer
Especially
there.
when you know there's help, and you try not to be pushy. You try to just put the food out for them and hope they come and get it. Yeah.
So I'm still moving along. We'll see how all of my stuff goes.
Fantastic.
But really to have the resource. I will tell you, I think most of my clients are on some kind of HRT, as I think about it.
And that's surprising to me, because what was the latest? I think it was 4%. 4% of women are even, maybe they are even offered the conversation. No, I think are actually on it. I'll have to fact check that.
You know what I think it might be endemic of who these women are, because I will tell you, and I know you will know this too. So what is available to women who choose to be athletes, who choose to care about the food they put in their body, to exercise, to drink their water, get sleep, live that lifestyle? Everybody wants that result. I would tell you, maybe, and I'm going to be generous, 5% of the population will do the work. Mm-hmm. So my clients are the gals who are willing to do
the work. They're looking for it.
They're the gals who go out and find a functional medicine doctor and say, I want to make sure that
that's a great point.
Right, doing everything I can to maximize my health. I'm not working this hard, for nothing. And I think they're those who are willing to speak up. So I think
you're working with a completely different demographic, the type they want it all. And why not?
And right. And they're
Why
only,
the heck not?
I will tell you, I don't know what you found, but I have come to realize, so being in the career I have been in, like I'm a planner. Nothing makes me happier than a good plan. I plan, I got everything out. My food's planned out. My workouts are. I love a good plan. To live this lifestyle and not drive yourself nuts, you have to be a planner. And I just assumed everyone had some level of planning ability, and that is not always the case. I think everyone can learn. That comes back to limiting beliefs, right? Like I say to me, oh, well, I'm not a planner. And so I will say to them, well, no, you're not
one.
Oh, you're not a planner yet.
Yes,
and
good for you.
Right? They kind of look at me. I said, you can become a planner if you want to, right?
Yes.
But it's same thing as we were talking about, kind of holding
yes.
I can be there as a coach and as a cheerleader and as an accountability partner, but I
can't do it for you.
So people just have to decide they're willing to do the work.
And you're a great example of that.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Well, best of luck to you on when's your competition again?
October 25th.
Okay, so you said, what are we in? We are in June, July, August, September. So you've got 4 months.
4 months.
4 months. And do you have a specific weight you are aiming for to hit this?
You mean as far as like gonna lift?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea.
So you're progressively overloading right now, trying to prevent injury, get stronger, and then you're going to go bust out your max.
Well, and the likelihood of there being anyone else there might be another 60-year-old, but they do it. It's both age and weight because, it's since it's lifting, it's a percent.
Okay.
So someone else could be in my age group, but they're about 10 to 12 pounds.
Okay. So it's very unlikely you're going to end up with 20 other people in your category is what you're saying. Gotcha. Okay.
That there'll be 2 or 3 other gals in their 60s lifting it all. So
well, I want you to go set like a world record though. Like, let's go do it.
I might. The thing I was laughing. Someone said I'm going to be in California, so this is less likely. But I had a gal reach out to me on Instagram who did her first powerlifting competition somewhere in Arizona, and she said I set a state record for her age in her weight class.
Awesome.
She only squatted with the bar.
You got this. You got it.
Anyone in her age or weight class. And so like other things, right? There's more of us who are saying, I can do this in my 50s and 60s and 70s. And
yes, absolutely.
Right?
And so, because of you, next year, there's going to be more people like you doing this.
I'm going to do my part.
Oh, you keep at it, girl. I'm so proud of you. And it's been such a pleasure getting to talk to you and feel of your energy. I'm just very impressed by what you've done. And you give me hope for, I'm 51. So what do you got? Are you 66?
I am.
So I look at what I get to do in 15 years. I'm stoked. I'm so excited.
Okay, awesome. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, what a pleasure. Thank you so much, Eileen. And if you want to hurry and just tell people where they can find you if they're looking for you.
Yeah, you can find me. My website is silverandstrong.com. Find me on Instagram at silverandstrong. And that I do have I have a free Facebook group that's called Silver and Strong Fitness. That's
great.
Kind of thing focused on women 50 plus. We talk about macros, muscles, and mindset. We're starting a new steps challenge on the first day of summer, just to get people out and moving. And there's about 5,000 of us, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to make a note. So in 3 years, I can join. I'm never too young for anything. I love it.
You could absolutely join now if you'd like.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much. And we will talk soon. We have some fun things coming up as advocates. We're going to get all together and kind of share some ideas. So we'll get together and do that soon. Okay. But thank you so much. And you take care. I'll keep my eye on you. I love watching your Instagram.
You got it.
See you later. We'll see you.